here. All right, we're good. I'm going to put this on Facebook as well. So I see people hopping on. Guys, say hello when you hop on. I'm in the background here doing some things so that we can go live on Facebook. I know we get a lot of viewers there. And so, you know, if today's information is, you're finding a lot of value in it, go to our Facebook page, Barton Publishing, and share that with your friends. I got to stop talking so I can go live here. But that's one thing that we like to do is make this available to everyone because we know there are a lot of people who can really benefit from this information. So get this shared. We are here with Dr. Scott Saunders, the one and only. And today we are going to be talking about food, which I'm really excited about because, you know, we all eat it. And it's really important in our diet. We talk about that a lot when healing our bodies. And so I'm excited to talk about that. We also want to get feedback from you guys. So I'm going to share this quick, Dr. Saunders, maybe a disclaimer. How about a disclaimer?
Okay. Let's disclaim everything. Okay. We're not responsible. You are. The basic idea is this is an informational program and it's to give you general information. The application specifically to your case requires you to consult with your doctor. So don't just go like, oh, I'm going to stop my medications and just go on this diet or whatever. Make sure you look that it applies to your situation specifically, because it's not going to apply to everybody equally. Some people are going to need to wean off of certain medications, and some people are going to need to change to a different one. And there's different needs for different people. So if you have more specifics, consult with your doctor and say, look, I would like to do this program. How would I go about making sure that my blood sugar doesn't drop too low, or that I'm not going too high, or not just stopping medications, and my blood pressure or whatever else is going on. That's the reason you consult with a doctor, so that you get the idea of how that's going to work for you. You know, with food, the original doctor that we consider Hippocrates to be the father of modern medicine in a way. Hippocrates had a saying, and he said, he was talking to his medical students, and he would say, let food be your medicine, and let medicine be your food. In other words, saying that as a doctor, your entire life revolves around this healing kind of thing, and use food for your medicine, for fixing things. And that's been, since he was alive some 2,500 years ago, nothing has changed. If you think about it, when we have the right nutrients in our body, everything functions well, as long as we don't have some genetic anomaly that changes everything. But assuming we have normal genetics and normal metabolic functioning, then having the right nutrition, having the right nutrients in your body, everyth's just going to work. And it does. It just works normally. And when things don't work, then you have to go, why not? So from Hippocrates' day to the modern era, most, or maybe not the majority, but a lot of what doctors saw was deficiency diseases. If you've ever heard of scurvy and kwashiorkor and beriberi and rickets, these were all deficiency diseases, and just because people lacked nutrients. In one, there are several books about, if you ever read The Secret Garden, you know, the kid in the house, he had rickets. That was why he was confined to his bed. It was the worst possible treatment. What he needed was sunshine to get vitamin D. And they keep him indoors in bed all the time and can't get out and keep the windows closed because he's like pale as a ghost, they said. Same thing with, if you've ever read the book Heidi. Clara is in Frankfurt and she has rickets and they keep her indoors all day. And so, you know, in both cases, the protagonist brings the sick person out into the sunshine and they start, you know, and Heidi brings Clara up to the mountain air. They say the mountain air cures her. It was the sunshine, you know, she got some some vitamin D, and all of a sudden everything started functioning well. So that's why we think food is probably the most important thing for the functioning of your body. And they had a lack, and that was always deficiency diseases. Now we have the opposite in at least in most of the world, where we have epidemic proportions of people getting diabetes. We're not talking about like COVID-19, where 1/10 of 1% of the population is dying from it. We're talking about 50% of the population is either pre-diabetic or diabetic and are headed for a kidney failure, liver failure, blindness, amputations of their limbs. This is so much more huge than COVID-19, and yet nobody talks about it. This is like literally an epidemic, almost a pandemic, except certain areas of the world don't have too much. And our problem is not deficiency, it's too much. So what we do is totally different. We don't say you need more vitamin C. We say you need less carbohydrates, you need less sugar, you need less sweet stuff. And so the way we look at it is different. It's still healing the body with food. It's still getting the right proportion of nutrients, because so many people are toxic on excessive levels of sugar. About 50%, more than 50% of our population is toxic on sugar, which is the most deadly toxin in the world. So more people die from sugar toxicity than from any other toxic substance. Alcohol is...
Well, I was going to say, and it's so addicting. And I know you've talked about that too. And we find, a lot of our customers that are sending messages into us say, how do I stop this addiction? How do I stop eating sugar? I'm craving it. And what do you recommend for that?
I don't know. It's kind of like an understanding. I read a book on how to get off of alcohol for people who are alcoholics, addicted to alcohol, and like, how do you stop? I need it. And what the author said was realizing that you don't really need it, that it's not imperative to your life. It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't help you be socially better. It doesn't help you sleep better. None of the things that you were told that alcohol would be good for really are true. It's all fake. It's all false. And so she has a program where she has people videotape themselves. Before they're drinking, they talk into their video, and then they start drinking some alcohol, and they keep talking into their video. And then the next day, when they're not drinking, they're supposed to watch the video. And when they realize, oh my gosh, I sound like an idiot after I've been drinking. I'm never going to drink again. If you take sugar in that sense and you learn, so what we do is we give you information, give you all this information. Guess what? You don't need to eat every day. You were told when you were little, your mom said you have to eat your 3 squares a day, and make sure you get enough, and clean your plate and finish all of it, and eat more, eat more, eat more. And it turns out that that's not true, that actually the single best thing you could do for your health is fast, just not eating. And you know what? It's cheap. It's free. And it's so much better than going to a doctor. And this is not new. 100 years ago, Sinclair Lewis, who was famous for writing The Jungle, a Pulitzer Prize winning book, 100 years ago, he wrote a book called The Fasting Cure. And it got buried because nobody wanted to do it. In fact, in those days, the medical textbook said if you fast more than 10 days, you'll die. And he's like, no, we got people on 30-day fast. We got people on 40-day fast. We got people fasting for 2 months. I told you about the guy in Scotland. He was 480 pounds, about 480 pounds, and he wanted to be 180 pounds. So he wanted to lose 300 pounds. And he tried diets and they didn't work. So he just quit eating for a year and 18 days and weighed 180 pounds. In other words, he took in no calories. He was only drinking water. He had some black tea in the morning, and he took a vitamin pill, and he went to his doctor and had some blood tests done over the year, but a whole year without eating. And so if we can dispel the myths that were told to you that you have to eat, that carbohydrates are good for you. For heaven's sakes, carbohydrates are good for you if you're starving. But when you have too much, then it's too much. You can get toxic on water, for heaven's sakes. A lot of people are told that they have to drink a gallon of water a day, or at least 8 glasses a day, and they're carrying around these huge quart bottles. And there's a nurse that I work with at the nursing home. She has this 1 gallon jug, and it has the 7 o'clock line, the 10 o'clock line, the 1 o'clock line, the 3 o'clock. And so that's how she knows if she's in the right spot as far as drinking enough water. She's peeing all day long. But you know what? That's not healthy. You deplete your body of all kinds of nutrients, especially minerals, when you're drinking that much water. So at times you may want to cleanse and do a whole bunch of water, but to do that every day is not healthy. You get toxic on water. You can dilute your sodium down so much. I had a woman come in who had been drinking so much water, she was drunk. And I thought she'd been drinking alcohol. I sent her to the ER because she was falling down. And it turned out that she just had too much water. She depleted her sodium and her brain wasn't working right. So you have to be really careful about getting too much of anything. So that's why food is your medicine. And use your food as your medicine. Look at everything you eat and go, is that going to make me healthy? Is this to increase my health? Instead of just looking at, does it taste good?
This is good. Very good information. We have a lot of people on Facebook and on our Zoom right now. Guys, feel free to ask us questions for Dr. Saunders. We will do our best to answer those live. Just kind of some background on how this topic came up. We were discussing the Diabetes Solution Kit, and if you've been on here before, you know that we are revising some of the food and the recipes. And those of you who are not familiar with the Diabetes Solution Kit, you can go to bartonwebinar.com and get more information. It'll also give you a link to all of our past webinars that we've done. They're all on YouTube, and we are on about a year of these weekly webinars, and they are full of so much information. So make sure that you do that. But in our discussions yesterday, we were talking about different foods that we eat, and also how we plan our grocery list, how we plan what we're going to eat for the day. In the Diabetes Solution Kit, it talks about, having 20 grams of carbs during that phase 1. And so really planning helps. So what you're having for breakfast, what you're having for lunch, what you're having for dinner, supper, whatever you call it. I'm a supper girl. I call it supper. So we wanted some feedback from you guys on how do you do your meal planning? How often are you going to the store to get your groceries? What are your favorite things to eat for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, etc.? So give us some of that feedback in the comments on Facebook or in the chat on Zoom. And we also are going to go through some of these questions here too. So feel free to ask questions. I'm going to start with one here from our friend Crystal. What is the recommended amount of water to drink daily? How do we know if we're drinking too much or not enough?
Oh, okay. That is a great question. Okay, so you have a mechanism called thirst. When you're thirsty, you need water. When you're not thirsty, you probably don't need water. And one important thing about thirst is to avoid things that have taste in them, the sweet. Things like juice and chocolate milk and sodas, and even the waters that are infused with flavors and stuff like that, especially anything that's sweet. So those kinds of things, like for example, alcohol will not quench your thirst. So people can drink and drink and drink and drink, but they're going to pee out more than they take in. They're going to actually get dehydrated while drinking alcohol. Mm-hmm. So it's not just drinking. Most of the sodas now have, like Coca-Cola, for example, contains salt and sugar, and the high saline content salt and sugar actually is less hydrating to your body unless you're deficient in salt, which most of us are not. So, so avoiding all of those things, and when you're thirsty, drink water. If you just leave it at that, that's an adequate way of saying it. You don't have to really do anything. You don't have to say, oh, I need 8 glasses of water. I've only done 4 today. Oh no, I'm gonna die. It's just when you're thirsty, drink. And at some point, like when you do fasting, the animal research shows that fasting is really good if you abstain from eating any food, calories, especially, all that kind of stuff. But it's even better if you don't drink any water. So during the fast, like if you fast for 1 day, no food, no water, is a much better way to do it than just fasting without food. So why is that? Because the kidneys have a concentration gradient of salt. And if you're drinking water all the time, you lose the concentration gradient. You have a much lower gradient, so you can't concentrate your urine very well. Whereas if you just periodically, like once a month, you fast for 1 to 3 days without any food or water, then you bring up that concentration gradient in your loop of Henle, and it helps the kidney to excrete toxins better, to balance the sodium potassium better, and to keep your water balance really good. So it's not how much you drink specifically, it's your kidneys. Your kidneys are controlling your water. If you're thirsty, for heaven's sakes, drink, unless you're doing a specific fast. And then you may want to be thirsty for a little while. That's okay.
Oh, that's good. And we're getting a lot of questions about water. So how about seltzer water?
Okay, well, seltzer water, carbonated water of all different kinds. There's all different kinds of brands of it. And carbonated water is okay. You have to remember, though, that it's an acid. That what you're drinking is carbonic acid. The CO2 makes carbonate, and that carbonic acid it's bad for your teeth. And to some extent, it affects your metabolism. Not a lot, because the carbon dioxide that's in there, you'll actually breathe it out. So whatever you don't burp up, you'll absorb it absorbs really easily into the blood. So you'll absorb into your blood, and then you'll breathe it out. You won't even notice it. So it's not a big deal. So if some people have said, oh, I can't drink plain water, I have to have something in it, can I just have carbonated water? Yeah, okay. If that's what you need, that's fine. Just dilute it out, so you just have the pinpoint carbonation, just a little bit of carbonation, and then that's probably a better way to go.
Do you have thoughts on coconut water?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, coconut water has a little bit of sodium and potassium in it, and it does have a lot of sugar, though, because, well, coconut does have sugar. So, and it's sucrose. There's sugar in it. I think it's like in a 16 ounces, it's something like 20 grams of carbohydrates. So it's not a small amount. So if you're on phase 1 of the Barton Publishing program, that coconut water is not going to be on your list.
Unless that's all you're having for the day. Well, no, we don't like the sweetener that's in it, so maybe not.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Okay. I love this. Your son Christopher says, hi, Dad.
Oh, hi, Chris.
That's the best. That's the best. Okay, Patrick, our friend Patrick is on here. He says, I remember hearing from the Depression era parents about the Clean Plate Club. Finish everything on your plate. That's good. I remember that too. Let's see. Other questions. I'm having problems finding the white wine vinegar recommended in the solution kit. Can you give advice on where to find it?
Okay. Well, on the one hand, there's nothing magical about white wine vinegar. If you get some balsamic vinegar or apple cider vinegar, and people have sworn by apple cider vinegar for many years. Some people don't like that. They prefer other kinds of vinegar. White wine vinegar is okay, and it's a little harder to find than balsamic vinegar. You could use that. Or just the plain white vinegar, that's distilled vinegar. And you know what, that's okay too. It's all acetic acid. The others have like more nutrients in them besides just the acetic acid. The apple cider vinegar has other things in it. And so does the wine vinegars and the balsamic. But the point of the vinegar is really more the acetic acid. If you're taking an acid, it will suppress to some extent your stomach acid if you have acid reflux or things like that.
Does boiling water make a difference? Susan is asking.
When I lived in Venezuela, boiling water made a big difference. But we didn't get sick, we boiled the water. It depends. It depends on where you are, but the idea of boiling water in order to change the structure, they call it the molecular structure of the water, of how the molecules fit together. Mostly they're random, but there's some really interesting studies on water that's been boiled, water that's been through plants. Like if you take the water out of juice, extracted from a plant, it has a different molecular structure than, or the way the molecules fit together is different. Some of them call it structured water, where it has a pattern and isn't just random like other water. So I don't know. You know what? I've read the research on it, but I have no way of knowing if that's going to have any benefit to you more than just drinking plain old tap water.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. I believe this is Annie. Or Anne is asking if we subscribe, or if you subscribe to organic is best. Believe in organic as the best way to do things. Best way to eat.
Okay. Yes. I believe real organic is best, and I subscribe to it because of the research. And there is some pretty good research that shows people who eat organic have less of the toxins in their urine than people who don't eat organic. So is that a big deal? Probably not. Remember, toxins are not about what it is, it's about how much. You could be toxic on water if you drink too much. But methylmercury has no lower limit of toxicity. 5 atoms of methylmercury can kill a nerve cell. So at very tiny amounts, there was a story of a researcher who was researching with methylmercury and had a gloved hand, was working in a ventilated area, a hood that had negative pressure, and she got a tiny spot of methylmercury on her glove. So she took off the glove, pulled her hands out and everything, and she thought everything was going to be okay. She started getting toxic and she died from it. So this is a very tiny amount. The other stuff that you're dealing with when you're dealing with organic are things like glyphosate and organophosphates, things that are both fertilizers, weed killers, and pesticides. So for some people who are like deficient in glutathione, a small amount of organophosphate pesticides can cause them to get Parkinson's disease. Now, is that going to happen to everybody? No, it's only a small percentage of the population that they just, for whatever reason, they don't their sulfation pathways are limited because of what genetic problem they may have, for example. So, having said all of that, I think just generally avoiding them is better, and actually organic food is healthier as well. It has more nutrients in it, according to most studies.
Okay. Sir Charles is back and has a good question here. The solution kit says use 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon in probiotic yogurt. Can I put the cinnamon in my smoothie instead?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. The cinnamon can go in anything, and the purpose for that's 1 gram of cinnamon essentially, and that helps you when you're eating, especially when you're eating sugar or carbohydrates in any way. It helps you just be more sensitive to your insulin, so that you can use that sugar more efficiently. That's what it does.
Okay. We have another question here. Do you have any recommendations for a doctor who can guide me to help control my blood sugar? I'm having a difficult time. I'm trying not to go back on pills, but it's quite difficult.
Okay, great. Thank you for asking that. Yes, there's a lot of doctors now. So when I first started going to conferences on functional medicine, integrative medicine, we would have 50, 100, 150 doctors at the conference. Now I go to conferences and there are 5,000 doctors from all over the country, and they're not just medical doctors, they're naturopaths and chiropractors and acupuncturists and nutritionists, and they're all learning this stuff of how to reverse illness, how to make the body functional instead of just covering things up with band-aids. So there may be a lot of people around that don't show up on your radar because they're an acupuncturist, for example, but they may be trained in functional medicine. So that's the first place to look, is functional medicine. And then as you're looking around, if you look at integrative medicine or functional medicine and you call an office and you say, okay, I need help with my diabetes. Do you guys help get people off their medications and reverse their diabetes? And if they say, yes, absolutely, we know how to do that. That's one of our big things. Then you have somebody. If not, ask them. Say, okay, who does, who in this area does functional medicine that would be able to help me with that? And because we all know each other, I know all the functional doctors in Santa Barbara County, practically the whole, yeah, definitely the whole county, even in neighboring counties. I know all the people that do what I do. So, and there's only 5, so we're good. So yeah, so ask around and until you find somebody that goes, absolutely, we know how to deal with diabetes.
And also, let's mention too, if you currently do not have the diabetes solution kit, now would be a great time to check that out. You can get more information at bartonwebinar.com. Dr. Saunders has helped thousands of people reverse their type 2 diabetes, and he does that well. So definitely check out information there. I'm actually going to post this in the chat. If you're on Zoom, you'll see that in the chat, bartonwebinar.com, and it's already pinned in the post on Facebook. So bartonwebinar.com, you'll also see the links to all of our past YouTube videos, because every webinar that we've been doing for every Tuesday for the past year is on YouTube. So many topics. In the beginning of this webinar, Dr. Saunders talked about vitamin D, and we actually talked about that, I believe, last week. We talked about that last week? Yeah.
Yes, we did.
We've shared, his thoughts on some COVID things and wearing masks, and just a lot of really... Yes.
Can I tell you a story about that right now?
Yes.
Okay, this is really cool. So I'm also medical director of a long-term care facility, a transitional care facility or nursing home. And we have 130 people in the nursing home. Every one of them has been exposed to COVID-19. We had we're up to 35 positive cases. But what I did is, what was it? In March, we started everybody in the nursing home on 50,000 units of vitamin D once a week. And the insurance doesn't cover that, so the facility said, we will buy it. So the facility bought like 20 bottles of vitamin D, and we've been giving everybody a weekly supply of vitamin D. And so we've had 35 positive cases. And all of them are sitting around in the COVID unit going, why am I here? I'm not even sick. Sorry, you tested positive. You have to be here. But because none of them got sick, except for one who was sick a few days ago. He got really sick, short of breath, wasn't able to breathe. And I'm like, darn, and so then the nurse offhandedly said, oh yeah, he's been refusing his medications for the last 3 months.
Oh,
in other words, he's the only one that wasn't getting the vitamin D, and he's the only one that has had shortness of breath, and his oxygen levels actually dropped low.
Let's maybe chat about that too. For those who maybe missed the webinar, what do you recommend for vitamin D for everyone, especially during this season?
Okay, so between 5,000 and 10,000 units a day will get almost everybody up above 30, in the 40s area. That's the level if you draw blood. So the between 5,000 and 10,000 units a day is adequate They also make a weekly dose, which is 50,000 units once a week. And that's what we decided to use in the nursing home. I have to say that there's one other person that got shorter breath. She has chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and was in the hospital and put on a ventilator, and she passed away last week. So we did have one other case, but didn't stay in-house, was in the hospital. We didn't treat her. But she was getting the vitamin D. So that was a different issue. Anyway, there's a lot of evidence that getting adequate vitamin D does protect you from viruses in general, because it's a macrophage activating factor, as well as cancer. So it's a good idea to keep your vitamin D levels normal anyway, all the time.
This is good. Susan had mentioned here, she's been a member of the Diabetes Solution Kit for some time now. With the solution, I've been able to lower my A1C. Thanks so much. My question is, how can I receive the new protocols or changes you spoke about? Great question, Susan. So we met as a team yesterday. We have made all of these changes to our recipes. We were just finding some things that we wanted to update. And so those changes, along with a possible meal planning something, should be done next week. I know I have to have my part done by next week, and then it goes to our magic wizard who makes it look well. I don't know what to call her title. And then what we're going to do is anybody who purchases the new Diabetes Solution Kit will get all that information. If you've already purchased it, even if you purchase it today, we're going to send out an email with all of the updated information once it's ready, so that you can go there and grab it, download it very easily. But you guys are going to love it. The recipes we put together are not only tasty, but they're using real good foods, all of the things that we've been telling you to do. And we're really excited about it. A lot of the recipes we've all been trying. If you haven't joined our 610 group on Facebook, this is where Dr. Saunders has done a webinar on the 610 reset. He also has some information on that Facebook group, but it talks a lot about when to stop eating and when to be in bed and how that impacts your body. But you can join that group on Facebook for free, and we've been sharing some of the recipes there. So just saying, you may want to check that out. Okay, so great question, Susan. We will definitely get that information to you as soon as it's ready. We're all very excited about that. So what else do we have in here? I better scroll back to the top so I don't miss these questions. Here's something on Facebook. Let's look at this. Great information, Curtis says. Question: why am I getting two different readings from One Touch and my Libre 14-day monitoring? For example, the One Touch meter would show 119 and the Libre would show 89 at the same time. Please explain, which should I use?
That's a really good question. The Libre monitor uses a tiny amount of fluid from under the skin. It doesn't even have to be blood. So I would be a little more suspicious of that one than the One Touch, which is a capillary where you have to stick your finger and get a capillary blood out of it. But I don't know what's the difference in machines. And they allow for, expect a 10 to 20% variation. And so those exact numbers are actually pretty close. That's almost, well, it's a little more than 20%. So that is a bit more than expected of a difference in the machines. So, gosh, I don't know. I would have to do research on the machines themselves and see what the variance is in them.
Okay. Oh, Sandra, this is great. Know that these webinars have been so helpful to me. I've dropped 5 pounds this past week, and my blood sugar has also dropped down to 5. I have had to lower my insulin according to my blood sugars. This is a long process, and I'm so happy. Thank you all for your help. Yay!
Yay!
If you were on the webinar, I think last week, what did Joe have? He had something. Did he have like a puppet or something? Or I don't know. He would cheer for people with weird props. And Joe's not on. We haven't even mentioned that. He is, I believe he is helping with Royal Family Kids Camp this week. Him and
Yeah.
his wife really do some amazing things with that. If you haven't checked out Royal Family Kids Camp, it's a camp that is put on for foster children, and it is very cool, and they're leaders with that. And can you imagine, you know, Joe, he is a character, and so kids just love him. I can imagine him there just being wild and crazy, being a kid himself. So, but check out Royal Family Kids Camp. It's really, really cool. So we're excited to hear reports back from that next week. Okay, let me see here. Oh, so many questions. All right, I'm going to get to as many as I can. Keep them coming, guys. Okay, so what are the recommendations again for vitamin D?
Okay, vitamin D, if you take between 5,000 units a day and 10,000 units a day, you're good. You don't even have to measure the level. There was Dr. Blanking on his name, from the Vitamin D Council, said, you know what, he doesn't even measure levels anymore. It just puts everybody on 5,000 to 10,000 units a day. So 5,000 units to 10,000 units a day, in between there. So some people are on 5 and they're okay, and people up to 10,000, they're okay too.
And one thing I want to mention too, if some of you have never heard Dr. Saunders talk about this, I hear people say, I'm in the sun a lot, so I'm getting enough vitamin D. And I'm just going to let Dr. Saunders share a little bit about that.
Okay, for all of the things that we do in our modern society, and like everything about our modern society prevents us from getting vitamin D. We work on indoors under artificial lights. We wear sunscreen, we wear hats, we put clothing on. We bathe every day. I had a patient who was a beach volleyball player, never wore sunscreen. And he says, oh man, my vitamin D's gotta be really good, because, you know, I'm not wearing a shirt or anything, and I'm out there practically every day. His level was 32, which is in the deficient range. Over 40 is best, and up in the 50 to 60 range is best, but over 40 is good. So he was pretty close to deficient. He says, no way, how does that happen? So we figured out that the first thing he does after he plays volleyball, he goes into the showers and washes all the vitamin D he just made down the drain.
That's a hard thing too, because when you're out in the sun all day, you want to shower.
Exactly.
I was thinking about that. We're out. A lot of you guys know this. We recently moved to an acreage, and we are doing a lot of stuff outside, and it's been like 90-degree days. And I keep thinking about that beach volleyball player, and I'm thinking, wait, I don't want to shower. I need to use all of this. But I don't know. I got clean, fresh sheets, and I think I'm just gonna take it manually. Anyway, okay. Oh, this is good. Stephanie, thank you for this question. Dr. Saunders mentioned eating breakfast before 8 a.m. What foods might you recommend for breakfast when trying to heal your body?
Oh, great. Okay, so the best thing to eat for breakfast is food. And natural food. And you know what? Leslie was asking me before we got started. So she says, well, what kind of foods do you eat? And so for breakfast, I have a salad, or sometimes I'll have eggs and toast, or I'll have leftovers from the night before. I don't really have a breakfast food, and I don't think it's necessarily helpful to have a breakfast food. Having a lot of fiber is really good, but you have that with any meal, because when you eat a lot of fiber, you're getting a lot of nutrients as well. So for breakfast, eat good food. Eat high fiber, good quality, natural, organic if you can, food.
I remember growing up, I was never a breakfast food eater. At the time we'd have cereal or pancakes, bacon, and I just did not like those foods, so I wouldn't eat. And then I realized I don't have to eat breakfast foods in the morning. I can eat my leftover food that we had the night before. I've had salads for breakfast myself. And so kind of a mindset shift, I guess. One thing that we like to do is take foods that we had the evening before, mix it with eggs, put on some hot sauce. That's one of our favorite things to have in the morning. So and coffee. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to go to our Q&A. Let's grab some of these. That one is done. Okay, Patrick, I'm taking 2 500 milligram Metformin tabs twice a day. My morning fasting blood sugar has been running 96 to 97 recently. Do you think it's time to request dropping it completely or lowering to 1 to 2 tablets per day? I'm trying to follow phase 1.
Okay. So what was the blood sugar again?
96 to 97.
Yeah, okay, that's really good. So at this point, you can go off. You generally, you may not need the metformin. Remember what we said to talk to your doctor about that. But the point at which your blood sugars get normal, and that's pretty darn close to normal. Optimal is between 70 and 90. So if it gets below 90, then you should be going off metformin. You should call your doctor and say, look, my blood sugar is getting low. Can I get off the metformin? And they will usually say, yeah, that's a good idea. But if you're still in the 90 range, it's questionable. You could talk to your doctor about that and say, is it time? Can I go off the metformin if I'm doing this program and losing weight? Yes, that it would be fine if that works for you. That would be fine.
Sir Charles, okay, so he had the question about adding the cinnamon to his smoothie, I believe. He said, do I still need to do this if I'm also using the Cinechroma supplement? Because I've read that too much cinnamon causes some side effects.
That's a great question. We were just discussing this in our team because we use a water extract of cinnamon. And if you're using whole cinnamon, then yes, you can get that. It does have toxicity if you use a large amount every day. Remember, toxicity is not about what it is as much as how much of it is. So because we use a water extract of cinnamon, the toxic substance in cinnamon is not water soluble. So you get very little of it in the water extract, whereas the whole cinnamon is going to have more. So the answer to your question, it was a great question, is no, you don't need the cinnamon if you're taking the Cinechroma, because the Cinechroma has the water extract, which has the beneficial ingredient for blood sugar without the toxic substance in it. Good question.
Yes. Here's another really good question. This is this is anonymous. Let's see. In diabetics education classes, they teach to eat a snack between all 3 meals. I think the solution kit says just eat 3 meals. Which one is best?
Okay. So the question is, which one is best? And when you have 2 things that aren't best and you ask which one is best, then I'm going to go into the best. So the best thing you can do is eat 1 meal a day. That's the way it is, okay? The second best thing you can do is eat 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. So you can eat just breakfast, you can eat breakfast and lunch. The third best thing you can do is eat 3 meals a day. And the worst thing you could do is eat 3 meals a day with snacks in between. Because every time you eat, you release insulin, and you're already insulin resistant. So you're making more and more and more insulin the more times you eat. So the fewer times you eat, the longer you have an empty stomach, the more insulin sensitive you become. And that's how you reverse the illness.
Okay, this is good. Shoba, hello. Can we replace sugar with dates?
Oh, thank you for that question. Dates. Okay, dates are wonderful. They're great. You know, I like them a lot. But guess what? Dates have quite a bit of sugar in them. And it's sucrose. So it's just like table sugar, essentially. And, you know, as much as we'd like to say, yes, dates are great. They have a lot of fiber. They're good nutrient. They're just a wonderful fruit. But I think you would be allowed 1 date on the diabetes reversal or diabetes solution kit, the phase 1 of the program. I don't think you get more than 1 date. So I would avoid dates until you get into phase 2, when you're adding things in and seeing what's going to raise your blood sugar.
Okay, great question from Anne. If you are fasting, can you still take your meds?
Generally, the answer is yes, but I don't recommend it. And you may want to talk to your doctor about that, because during the time that you're fasting, your blood pressure is going to drop down, and you could get dizziness, and it could cause vertigo and other problems. If you're you can get hypovolemia, which creates hypotension, low blood pressure if you're taking blood pressure medications. And if you're taking diabetes medications, you could get hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, which is actually more dangerous than high blood sugar. So, and for long periods of time. So it depends on the medication, but most medications you could just not take during the days that you're fasting and just go, I skipped those. But don't tell them I told you that.
These are really good questions, you guys.
We're not recording this, are we?
Yeah. No, not at all. It won't be posted later. Okay. Is there a connection between kidney function and blood pressure, like high blood pressure?
Oh, absolutely. The kidneys control your blood pressure. So when your kidneys aren't getting enough energy, then, this is so cool. So we talked about your brain not getting enough energy because the glucose transport proteins diminish over time because the blood sugar is high all the time. Well, guess where else that happens? It happens in the kidneys. So the kidneys are getting less and less sugar, swimming in a sea of sugar, and they're not getting any because that sugar has to be actively transported across in order to get to where it needs to be for your kidney cells to regenerate and reproduce and do what they do and function. So the kidneys stop functioning, and they're not functioning well. So the kidneys are going, wait a minute, we need more energy, better increase the blood pressure. So the kidneys are the ones that are increasing your blood pressure and causing it to go up because they're not getting enough sugar. So getting your blood sugar down to normal is essential for getting your blood pressure down to normal. So the blood sugar changes the blood pressure. That's why the person that asked about, do I take my medications while I'm fasting? Well, you better be careful, because if your blood sugar comes down to normal and your kidneys start getting enough, your blood pressure can drop too low if you're taking the medication. So yes, that's a great question. The answer is yes.
Okay. Another good question. That question was from Grace. Grace, we're glad to have you back. Okay, my blood sugar has been running around 170 without medication. Should I be on medication?
Well, ideally, you should be on phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit until your blood sugars are getting around between 70 and 90. So during that process, it's a process, not an event. You become more and more sensitive to your insulin so that your cells can bring the sugar in, and it'll lower your blood sugar. And when you get to in the normal range between 70 and 90, then you can start into phase 2. But the medications really aren't going to help that, because the problem is not the blood sugar specifically. The problem is the insulin resistance.
Okay. Let's see. Susan said, how long after you come in from the sun should you wait to shower?
Okay, great question. Okay, if any of you seen a biological system in anything, the graphs always kind of look the same. There's a rapid change, and then gradually less and less and less over time. So it takes about 24 hours to absorb most of the vitamin D that you just made. So yeah, wait a whole day before you shower after being in the sunshine. If you do, you go back out in the sunshine. There's a certain amount absorbed in the first hour, and then the second hour. Every hour there's a certain amount absorbed. But yeah, to get the full effect of that 20,000 units you just made out in the sun, it's going to be about 24 hours or more.
Okay. Oh, I love this. Patrick says, veggie stir fry makes a really nice breakfast. Maybe throw in a few shrimps, he says. It's good. And I love this too. Anne says, oh, this is so cool. Dr. Saunders, you're so funny. because when we ask questions and they're really good questions and you get to explaining it and you say, oh, this is so cool. We love it. The passionate doctor. We love, love, love it. Okay. Teresa, please post your URL for your clothing store. Teresa, you must have been on last week. I was sitting with my clothing
inventory.
My inventory, yes. I had some of my inventory behind me, and so we shared that my other business is a clothing store. So I do have a Facebook group. That's where I do most of it. It is called Flora May, but you can go to my actual website and shop. It's shopfloramay.com. So I'll post that here. Let's see. In an emergency, the quick way to raise blood sugar is to drink a glass of orange juice. What's the quick emergency way to lower blood sugar?
Fasting.
Okay, good.
Hands down. If you want to get your blood sugar down to normal, depending on how long you've had it, anywhere between 3 days and 7 to 10 days of fasting will bring you to a normal blood sugar.
Perfect. Okay. In phase 2, can I drink smoothies with spinach, chard, and kale and consider them free?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You don't count any of that as even carbohydrate calories, because all the carbs in there essentially is fiber anyway. And because they're really high in fiber, they also slow the absorption, so you don't have a high glycemic index with any of them. So yeah, count them as free. Yeah, those are great.
Okay. All right, let's see. This is Terry. I went back to the kit and started over, and my numbers have gone down from 8.7 to 10, between 4.0 to 6.8, and an average of 5.2. I do not take any meds except for the synochroma. My last meal is never after 6. I still have a difficult time falling asleep at 10, but it is improving. I want to thank you for all of the info and the help you have given me. Oh, that's
wow.
the best.
Good work. You know what? For those of you who don't know what those numbers are, that it's a different glucometer that they use in Europe and Canada than we do in the United States. And so between 4 and 5 is normal. That's the 70 to 90 range that I tell everybody to be in. So she's right in that normal range, which is excellent. So she's come from 10, which is a number around 200, over 200. She's down in the 70, 90. So she got normal. This is really good what she did.
Yes, it's so awesome. We love those messages. Okay, Anne says, will eating high fiber help to lower cholesterol?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, that's fiber. So when you eat a lot of fiber, it holds on to the bile acids that help digest the fats in your food. And when you hold on to those bile acids, you don't recycle them. So all of the gallstones and the sludge in the gallbladder and all that happens because people don't eat enough fiber, and that most of their bile is recycled bile, which is more sticky and it sticks together and makes stones, for example, in the gallbladder. Whereas if you eat a lot of fiber, you get rid of all of that, those secondary bile acids, so that you have to make new bile acids. So your liver is taking this cholesterol and making it into bile. And so your HDL goes up, your LDL goes down. Fiber is really good. I had a guy who, in order to get a bonus on his paycheck, his cholesterol level had to be down below a certain level, and he was just a little bit above that. It was the ratio of the total cholesterol to HDL ratio had to be below 4. And so I said, no problem. I said, how long do you have? He said, 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? That's not enough time. Okay. So I told him to go on a raw foods, all fiber diet. So just raw foods. And he did. He just ate raw foods. And when we did the test in 1 week, it was way down below, and he got his bonus. It was that fast. It was really good.
Okay, we had a question about how to find our webinars on YouTube. And you know what? I'm going to post a link to that. I'll post it both on Facebook and within the Zoom chat, so you can get that directly. But if you go to YouTube, they are called Barton Publishing Webinars. So we have a channel. You can click the videos on the top. Actually, I have the link right here, so let me just post this. And then we had a question about test strips. Let's see. My testing strip expired 3 months ago. Can I still use them?
The answer is yes, but you can't be sure they're accurate. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, the accuracy does change over time with the humidity in the air, the pH, and so time does not do well for test strips. So I don't know. Don't consider them accurate if you do use them.
Okay. I'm going to post this here on, oh, I lost our Facebook. Let's see here. I'll go back and post it, but I did post the link to the YouTube channel. We're going to do one more question here. And let's see. Okay, Grace, I am interested in the kidney function, on the balancing of electrolytes and the water intake. So any more that you can speak to that?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's a huge issue. And, most doctors don't understand this issue of how it works. And I've spoken with a lot of doctors who don't ascribe to the 8 glasses of water a day. Somebody just made that up. There was no research on it at all. And so you try to look up research and there's nothing there. So the idea of balancing is a lot and none. So you have a lot of something and then you have none of something. And that's what allows our bodies to achieve what we call homeostasis. You have hot and cold. You eat a lot and then none. You get a lot of vitamin C and then you get none. And so when we talk about taking your vitamins once a week, that's not just a theoretical possibility. You actually can become toxic on some things, vitamins, and you can inhibit other vitamins, especially minerals, when you're taking something every single day. So the kidneys need the same thing. They need that a lot and then none. So yeah, drink a lot of water, but then you have to go for periods of time with none. So that the gradient, there's a salt gradient that allows your kidneys to concentrate urine and hold on to water. And that only happens during the time that you're not drinking water, you're fasting and whatever. So so you don't have to do it for a long period of time if you just don't drink water for, no food, no water for 1 to 3 days. 3 days is kind of an optimal. That's where you kind of achieve your greatest benefit. After that, you still get some benefit, but it's not as much. And then you can go ahead and drink water to your heart's content after that. So that you have that a lot and then none, that gradient contrast. And that's what helps more than anything. And that's what allows the kidneys to function well.
And the a lot and the none seems to be a common theme in everything we're talking about. Sleep,
well, that's biology.
Yeah.
All of life requires that. We need day and night. And our 6-10 reset is all about having a wider difference between day and night, your circadian rhythm. You have a bigger circadian rhythm if you do the 6-10 reset than people who are half asleep all day and half awake all night. It's just barely a circadian rhythm.
It's good.
Same issue.
Okay. You guys, this has been a really good webinar. We've already been on for an hour. That went fast. I learned a lot. So this is awesome. You guys, we will be back next week again. As always, thank you for joining us. So many good questions. I giggle sometimes because I'm like waiting for when Dr. Saunders just gets stumped. I don't know how you are able to do this, but you've been doing it for a long time. So.
Stump the doctor.
Yes, no. So this is very good. We so appreciate you. Again, go to bartonwebinar.com if you want to get more information. You'll find, I also post the link to our YouTube channel. You can see the replays for all of these there. Make sure you subscribe because then you'll get a notification when we upload a new webinar. So again, thank you guys. We will see you soon. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.